Hi, it's Emily Leiphart from Art from the Heart, and in this video I'm creating a paper Smooches holiday card using a new stamp set called A Holy Holiday. This stamp set includes an adorable reindeer which I'm going to feature front and center on my card, a ton of beautiful sentiments, as well as smaller embellishments to create any type of scene you can imagine. To start, I've cut an A2 base from light grey cardstock. I'll be creating 2 layers of hills in the foreground using the stitched and Quotables dies. Directly on the card base, I'm going to stamp the birch trees from the Autumn Grove stamp set. Before I start stamping, I'm going to use the die and a pencil to mark where the bottom of the trees need to be. Then I start stamping all the way across the card, following the pencil line for the hills. Next, I'm going to combine the hills from the stitched dies with the hills from the Borders 1 die so that I have a complete stitched hill. I love being able to combine these, either for a clean hill or a stitched one. Now that it's perfectly sized, I'm going to measure the height for the hill that will be die cut using the Quotables die. I decided to make it sparkly because it's the holidays, and why not, right? I'm using leftovers from the stitched hill at the top to cover the ends of the trees. This is a sort of sky or cloud panel, and my son, who was watching me make this card, suggested snowflakes falling from it, which I thought was a fantastic idea. I needed a way to have the reindeer in front of the trees, but I wasn't going to stamp and fuzzy cut him. To solve that problem, I'm going to cut a vellum panel, which will be suspended between the cloud and hill panels. The reindeer will be stamped and heat embossed on that vellum panel. After the powder has been heated, the reindeer is all shiny and pretty. This was the first time my son watched me heat emboss, and now of course he thinks I should heat emboss everything. The next step is to erase the lines on the card base. After a bit of cleanup, my son asked when I could use red powder. I suggested doing it for a red nose on the reindeer, and he pointed to the little berry stamp, so I decided to go along with it. I didn't use the embossing bag this time, so a small brush came in handy for removing the stray specks. The rouge embossing powder looks fantastic, don't you think? I had a vague idea of what I wanted to make when I started this card, but not a complete vision. It was one of those start it and see what comes next kind of cards, which is why there's so much layering, relayering, and looking at the card to see what would fit into the scene next. I always find it's fun to make those kinds of cards, especially with my son nearby and commenting on it ever so often. Next, I pull the Holly Jolly stamp set, which is also part of this release. I'm going to use the tag from this set and stamp one of the sentiments from A Holy Holiday inside it. I mask off the longer sentiment with washi tape and stamp it in 2 parts so it fits inside the tag. After heat embossing, I trim the tag and use an X-Acto knife to clean up the stray bits of powder and carefully wipe it with a fairly dry baby wipe as well as tissue. When that's done, I punch a 1/16 inch hole at the top for tying twine. My son insisted that I add snowflakes, so I draw a line marking the bottom of the sky panel. This way I know exactly where to stamp the snowflakes. I'm using the big snowflake from A Holy Holiday, as well as the small snowflake from Just For You, which is the TAM set for this release. Just before stamping the snowflakes with Versamark ink, I hold the sky panel and the tag in place to quickly visualize where I need to stamp them. I try to clean up as much as possible before using the heat tool. Now I can start to assemble this card. Since I cut the vellum panel slightly shorter than the card base, I need to make sure that it's in the right spot before adhering the sky panel to it, otherwise it will hang off the edge. I forgot to erase the pencil line first, but luckily I hadn't applied adhesive over top of it. Once the top panel is complete, I can add foam tape to the back of it. This will add a greater 3D effect to the scene, as well as make the trees look more distant and subtle. Since the dark embossing powder hides the foam tape, I can also add some behind the reindeer to help lift the vellum away from the trees. In some spots the vellum is a bit warped, so I'm going to use micro glue dots behind the snowflakes to hold it down. Now it's time to attach the tag. I choose a light grayish-blue cord and tie a cute bow. To help hold its shape, I use a multi-medium to saturate the cord and hold it for a few seconds. I love this little trick. Before adhering the tag to the card, I'm going to attach the glittery hill to the bottom of the card. I'm going to attach the tag flat to the sky panel with score tape and pop up the bottom over the trees with foam tape. One final thing I want to do is to apply a glue dot underneath the knot of the bow. I find this holds bows in place so they don't unravel or move. Now my card is done. Please refer to the supply links below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information about my cards. Thanks so much for watching.